I'm Monty. This is the Marriage Bites podcast.
We get real about the joys and challenges of marriage through bites of wisdom we have learned over the years.
Our aim is to share this wisdom with you so your marriage won't bite.
All right. Hello. Welcome to Marriage Bites podcast.
This is episode 26.
No, episode 5.
Episode 5 feels like 48.
We said this whole thing last time. We don't need to say it for every single time.
We did?
Yeah, we totally did.
I have memory problems.
Well, today we have a special guest.
Pat Sajak.
No, Austin. We're here with our son, Austin. He is our second born. Say hi.
Hi,
A man of many words.
How old are you now, Austin?
I'm 18.
He's holding up 5 with his fingers.
No, I'm not.
So we just thought it would be fun to have him on and talk with him about his life and his views on marriage and his future and all that good stuff.
Because he's 18 now, he knows.
He pretty much knows everything.
Yeah,
Tell us about your credentials in knowing things.
I know everything.
There you go, folks. He knows everything.
There you have it.
So, I guess we'll get right into the questions then, because our viewers are like, oh my word, we want to hear what they have to say.
Yes. So, Austin, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 18 years old, and I graduated high school already.
What's your favorite color?
I have 2 favorite colors, red and blue.
Okay. What's your favorite food?
Chicken nuggets or pizza or McDonald's fries.
That's
All
awesome.
of which are not very good for you, but they're really fun to eat.
Mm-hmm. So you have one older brother?
Yep.
How many younger brothers?
4, I think? Yeah, 4. I have 4 younger brothers.
Lost count.
There's so many of them.
There's a lot of them.
Oh, what do you think about having only brothers?
Well, I don't know. It's a lot of work sometimes to keep them all not clawing each other's eyes out.
Ain't that the truth?
Especially when, second youngest is picking on the youngest, and then the third youngest is picking on the second youngest for picking on the youngest, and then you have to, like, pry them apart with the crowbar, and then the other one is, like, fighting back, and then they both want to fight you because they want to fight. Yeah, it's weird.
It's like herding cats.
Cats that are on meth.
It's not a cattle drive, it's a cat drive.
What is your accomplishment in your life that you're the most proud of so far?
I don't know. Probably, like...
Graduated from high school. You earn a lot of money.
Yeah,
You-
at one point I had $15,000 in my bank account. I've done something that not many people do, and that's finding a source of passive income at age 18.
That's cool.
Passive income is nice.
What's your favorite TV series?
That's a hard decision because all the different TV series are pretty good. The ones that I like, at least, because they're all Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
There's like 8 different ones or something.
Do you think Star Trek is better than Star Wars, or Star Wars better than Star Trek?
Star Trek is obviously better because the plot line is a lot more fleshed out and it's a lot more dialed in on the characters, and like the plot line is deeper.
It's more cerebral.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Probably making a lot of enemies out there, all you Star Wars fans.
We like Star Wars too.
We do like Star
Star
Wars.
Trek
Still-
is just better.
Jeez, you guys.
What?
I like the controversy. Oh, man.
What is one of your favorite childhood memories?
Playing in the dirt when we weren't supposed to
Why?
because it's funny.
So many times I remember going outside and finding a big mud puddle and you guys in the middle of it, up to your ears in mud.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Those were the
It's
days.
funny because I know that Dad played in the mud and in the dirt when he was a kid too.
I played in the mud this morning.
I played in the mud too, a lot.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Stop the presses. This is something we've never heard of. Tell us about that. You played in the mud?
Sure.
The things I didn't know. I figured you were playing board games or, I don't know.
I did my share of board games too.
Writing equations. You gotta admit, your family doesn't seem like mudders.
You learn something new every day.
All I've heard about is butter stories.
We're not talking about butter.
Tell us about the butter.
Tell us about the butter.
I don't know anything about butter.
Maybe we'll talk about that in another podcast.
So, Austin, what's your favorite thing about being a part of this family?
Um,
Besides leaving it in a few weeks.
I'm the second oldest, and well, technically, right now I am the oldest, like in the house. So like, I have a lot of influence, and that's pretty cool. And I get to take care of the littlest while everybody else is gone and mom's working, and so that's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your favorite thing?
Being the oldest, I don't know,
Just being the oldest? All right.
second oldest.
All right. So, Austin, where do you see yourself in 5 years? 5 years from now?
I don't really know. Probably learning stuff in college or something like that.
Yeah. So tell us about your college. What do you want to learn in college? What are you thinking about studying in college?
Thinking about going into physical therapy because I took a sports med class a couple of years at my school and picked up the stuff pretty well, and it was really easy. So, and it was also fascinating, and I liked participating in that. And being a physical therapist, it doesn't take like a buttload of schooling to get there. So, I don't know.
Technical term there, buttload.
Yeah.
It is in the dictionary. Look it up.
Well, I want to tell a story about Austin. When he was 11, he found a first aid book that I had used in college and was reading it like a novel. So he's always been interested in the human body, and it's always really come naturally to him.
Lets me know big words like gastrocnemius.
Mm-hmm. So it's been a talent of his from the get-go, I'd say.
Well, I think that it speaks to that people have different talents and interests in things, and I think if you have those interests, you should pursue them because you'll likely be good at them and hopefully be able to bless other people's lives. I think, Austin, that doing physical therapy would bless other people's lives. It would not only bless yours, but it would be really good for other people too. However, I have an interesting experience with a physical therapist. I had shoulder surgery a few years back, and that physical therapist I went to, I think he was getting some joy out of torturing me. It was, I'd be screaming. He had this pleasant smile on his face during it. Oh man, this guy's sadistic. He did a lot of good work though.
Yeah.
Told me to quit being a wuss.
That sounds like the fun part.
All right, next question.
What are you doing now to prepare yourself for marriage in the future?
Learning how to work, I guess.
Good. What else?
Learning how to take care of kids.
You get a lot of practice at that these days.
Yeah. Preparing myself to have like a steady income.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Good.
yeah.
Anything else?
Preparing myself spiritually to like enter into that thing that I don't know what word to say. Or, I don't know.
What do you mean by preparing yourself spiritually? What does that
Well,
mean
like
to you?
it's a like forever commitment. So like you got to be ready mentally and spiritually for that.
So, kind of a follow-up to that, what you're doing to prepare for marriage. And this might be a really big question, but what do you think a good marriage has, or what does it take to have a good marriage?
Communication is like a big thing probably. Like I have never been in a marriage, but I assume like that's pretty important. Because like even in like regular friendships and stuff, like talking with your friends is an important thing. So like if you're in a deeper relationship, I assume that's pretty important also.
Yeah, I agree. I think communication is huge, and not just any kind of communication. It's got to be honest communication. I think, at least for Andelin and I, sometimes communicating about the difficult things are the most connecting, but they're always also the scariest and the hardest things to talk about and to communicate with. What other things do you think a good marriage is built upon?
Hard work and understanding like the problems and like different aspects of the other person that you're in a relationship with.
What do you mean different aspects?
Like they're a different person than you, so not everything is going to be the same with them. And you have to understand that they think about things differently.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. That's not something that we were necessarily taught when we were your age. I mean, it wasn't said that way, but I think that your generation is so much better prepared for marriage than we were just because everything is so different today.
I think it's because they don't follow a lot of the social norms that have been around in the past. They don't worry so much about culture that they've been raised around or their parents are raised around. They kind of do their own thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really big part of it. However, our generation or the generations before really, really stuck with cultural norms and really tried to live up to those things.
Mm-hmm. I think those norms are breaking down in society as a whole. And so our kids aren't necessarily feeling bound by that like we did.
Right. Okay, next question.
Is it my turn to ask?
Is it your turn?
I think so.
I was trying to hog all the questions. Jerk. What do you think your role is going to be as a husband? I know, I realize we just talked about social norms and cultural stuff, but there are still roles out there. Whether it be traditional or non-traditional, what do you think your role is? Or what do you see your generation's role as a husband?
Or how do you want to show up for your wife?
Boy, that's a lot of questions.
That was a lot. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is as a husband, I will also be a father, and as a father, I would need to provide for my family and make sure that I can have the things that are necessary provided and accessible to my kids and my wife, and then also be supportive in my wife's roles as mother and wife in the family.
What if she wants to be the breadwinner?
Is she making more than a physical therapist?
Yes, she's a surgeon.
Okay. I mean, physical therapist schedule can be pretty flexible.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
So that doesn't bother you?
Not as much. As long as I can have a flexible schedule in my job. If she's making more money than me, then, that's money, I guess. Money is good.
That's called gravy.
Well, I think there was a time when I would say, the Leave It to Beaver idea was pretty much widespread, where the husband was expected to make all the money and the wife was expected to care for the children and to not work outside the home. And we've talked about this in past episodes where that is really breaking down and people are not necessarily following those old rules anymore, which I see as a really good thing because it allows you and your wife to work out how you want your life to be based on what you want and based on what she wants, and making room for both of you to live to your fullest potential. So, what do you think fatherhood will be like?
I don't know.
Can you even imagine that?
Not really.
It's a few years away for you yet. Are you looking forward to having kids?
Yeah.
How many kids do you want?
I don't know.
That's okay.
Something I'll have to work out later.
Right, it's okay not to.
Now let's get that on tape right now so that we can hold you to it.
No.
He just put up 12 fingers.
12 fingers, yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think I can speak a little bit to this. So I had thought about fatherhood, but really not in depth because you don't really know what you're getting into until you're in it. At least that's how it was for me. I remember my dad talking about it and how it was it hit him like a ton of bricks. It was a pivotal moment in his life. And for me, it was the same way when our first son Cameron was born, even up when you were pregnant, and it didn't really seem real until that little squirt came out and started squirting everywhere. It really hit me hard, just like a ton of bricks, that now I've got to care for this child. I've got to make sure he has everything that he needs, not everything that he wants, but everything that he needs, and his nurture and education, everything was on Andelin and I, and we were going to have to take care of him until he was an adult, and then continue on, probably giving advice and helping until the end of our days. And that's a pretty big pill to swallow. It's been a great road. It's not always been easy. Lots of frustration, lots of heartache, lots of worry, and thank goodness he's turned out pretty good. And Austin, you've done the same. You're starting to pull your head out of the proverbial hole, if you will. And what's great about the next 2 years for you is that you're going to really have major growth if you allow yourself to stick with it and to take on that growth. It will really help you prepare to be a father and, I think, a husband. So the next question is, what qualities are you looking for or will look for in a wife? Well, that's a big question.
I think the biggest thing is that, she's willing to also work, in the household, with the family and like not just sit around, I guess. I've seen some people whose wives are just, they don't hold them accountable for their roles that they should play in the family, and so that those kind of families just fall apart because either one person's working or nobody's working towards a cohesive environment in the family. And so like having a wife that will facilitate a good environment and like, you know, will like make dinner when I'm not around, and you know, sometimes I would make dinner also, but like I don't want to be like, oh, women are just in the kitchen or every day or whatever, because that's not the truth. But like, you know, like if I ask her to do something, she will do it, and if you know, she can ask me to do things too, I guess. I don't know.
So if you're like, honey, make me a sandwich, you expect her to make you a sandwich?
Well, not if I say it that way.
If you say it that way, she can walk out the door.
Yeah, you might find her handing you a baby and being like, change this baby's poopy diaper. That's probably what would happen.
Well, and I just want to say Austin is a really good cook, so whoever he marries, she's going to be lucky. Because I'm married to somebody who is a really good cook too, and that has been...
Yes, Austin's future wife, if you're out there listening, you'll likely gain weight with Austin.
What?
Not necessarily.
He's going to feed you well. The food's going to be hard to say no to. So, question. So you said a wife that will... Basically, how I interpret what you're saying is that you want a wife that's not just going to sit around. She's not going to be lazy, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a really good quality. But how do you know that when you're dating? How do you know that she's not lazy? Because you will have the proverbial goggles on where you may not see warning signs. How do you overcome that?
I don't know. See what their family is like, I guess. If their family is like something like the kind of family that I would want someday, then there's probably a higher chance that if I marry her, then the family I'll have someday will be similar.
What her family culture is like is perhaps a good way of seeing who she is.
So one thing my dad taught me, and I believe it, is and people might be angry about this, but it's held true for me and others, is that my dad would always say, when you're dating a gal and you want to know if she's a hard worker, look and see what her mom does. If her mom takes care of business and keeps herself, I'm not saying she needs to doll herself up, if you will, but if the way she carries herself or the work that she does will tell you a lot about how the daughter will be. Also, if you have the opportunity to see your girlfriend's, future wife's apartment or house, see how she keeps it. You know, see how she keeps herself up will tell you a lot, I think.
Mm-hmm. Not to say that that's necessarily a deal breaker, because people can change, or they're not always exactly like their parents. People do work things out together and ask each other for things. And so if you see certain qualities in her that you don't see in her mom, that's not necessarily a deal breaker.
Yeah, what I'm talking about are clues. I mean, none of this is a set in stone rule. So those who are sharpening their pitchforks right now, these things aren't set in stone, but these are clues, I think, to look for. And conversely, for you ladies out there, if you're looking for a husband, look how your future husband's father treats his wife and takes care of things. A lot of times that's an indicator, but it's not 100%, but it is a good indicator.
So, permission to speak freely. What did we not do so well at as parents for you, in your opinion?
Mind you, I'm sharpening my pitchfork. No, just teasing.
Well, I feel like there wasn't a lot of patience when I was younger. And the punishments were pretty harsh, especially with, like, when I was younger. I don't know.
When did you start to see that change? Do you know?
A little while ago.
Well, when I grew up, spanking was a thing. And the more children I had, the more I realized that it's just not effective. Like, you can debate whether or not it's right or not all day long, but when it came down to it, it just wasn't effective. So there was a time when I decided spanking isn't something that I want to have in my family and my home anymore. So we stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like you noticed that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to realize, though, as parents, that the way you parent changes over time.
Definitely.
And nobody gave us a handbook and said, here you go. This will tell you everything about how to raise this certain child. And so a lot of parents are just winging it. And I know a lot of parents out there listening to this feel like they're just winging it. The thing is, everybody's just winging it, and we're doing the best that we can. So it's important to give yourself some grace in that, because there's things that I wish we could have done differently.
Me too.
And you don't really realize that until you're down the road a ways. But I think giving yourself some grace and realizing, okay, I did this one way, that didn't work so hot. Let's try a different way. And so for you parents out there who are feeling bad, you can always change and you can always do better.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you're not alone. We all wing it. We're all doing the best we can.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting a lot of influence from grandparents and parents and friends telling you all these myriad of different ways that you can parent your child, and they think they all know best, and frankly they don't, because they don't know you or your child or the relationship you have with them.
Mm-hmm. So Austin, what's something that you think that we did well as parents?
Well, I see other families, and they make their kids pay for a lot of things. Like, some of them are really expensive, like cars and paying for their gas. I haven't had to pay for my car. I haven't had to pay for my gas, and I've had that provided for me, and that's presented a lot of opportunities for me to save up for later in my life. And I didn't have to worry about that, and that's been a pretty good thing for me, because now I have a lot of money saved up, and I have a great opportunity coming up to use that money. So
You want to tell us what that is?
Serving a mission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like, if I had to pay for my own car and my own gas, I'd probably have like a quarter less, like, of what I have now.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little bit of a side note, but what kind of hot rod were you driving?
I was driving my dad's old car that he got a long time ago.
What is the car?
Ford Escort.
Oh yeah, 2002 Ford Escort with a lot of sass.
And a big old dent in the side.
Yep, it's got like 105, 110 horsepower engine of raw fury.
It's a race car.
It is. I drove it like I stole it.
I did too.
But it didn't go very fast because it's pretty weak.
But we bought that car when you were still in diapers.
Yeah.
You were literally in diapers.
It's been a good car.
It can't pass emissions, so all you officers out there, it's going to be, it's not registered really anymore.
So don't pull him over.
It will be crushed by the time you hear this. No worries. All right, I think this is our last question. What advice would you give to other parents out there who have kids about to graduate or go out on their own?
Encourage, but don't force them to like do anything. Like, when it was coming time for me to graduate, like, there was a lot of pressure on me to like go and do things, and like, I don't know, there was that pressure kind of made me not want to do anything, because I was being told, oh, you need to go do this, you need to like look at this, and what are you gonna do, go apply for college. And I was like, I don't want to do any of that now. I was going to, but not anymore, because you said so.
What do you do then when a kid won't leave the house though and won't do anything? Are you supposed to just let them stay in the basement all the time?
Well, no, but you don't have to tell them, like, you have to do this, you have to do that. You can encourage them, see what they need, and then support them in whatever they want to do, but never force them.
See, and I think that's an important thing is you don't have to force them, but your child, if they don't do anything, I think they can also live with those consequences of, hey, you're getting kicked out of the house. You need to go find your own home now.
Or the consequence of, you didn't apply for college, so no, you're going to have to wait. If you still want to go to college, you're going to have to wait.
Right. Or you're going to start paying room and board. Because I think it's important. This is an important point, and I'm glad you brought it up, because there are kids who say, I don't want to be forced. I don't want to be told what to do. But at the same time, if they're going to do nothing and never tell their parents what their plans are, and they do end up staying in the basement until they're 45, that is a huge problem, and that is happening more and more in our world, well, at least in our country. And it puts a lot of strain on parents financially, and these kids are a burden, and I don't think they realize they're a burden. And so I think letting them live with that consequence and that choice is really important. And if the choice is you either go to college, go into the military, do something, or go get your own place instead of sitting in my house, then, let them face that consequence.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got to say, you know what, child, I love you, but you got to go. Because that's the best thing for them.
Right. It's definitely for the benefit of the child. Depending on the child, of course, each parent knows their own kid and knows what's best for their kid. But it is sometimes a hard thing to do, to say, it's time for you to... I guess we're talking about not forcing your kid, letting them choose. But
letting them live with the consequences of deciding not to do anything. Because I think consequences, or letting them reap the reward of their action or inaction or their decisions, is really important.
And I think it's important for parents to understand and to know their child enough to know when it's time for them to take the next step to grow. When their growth has sort of plateaued, and then maybe there's another thing that will help them to grow, and to sort of, some kids need a little bit more of a nudge into that than others.
Right. I think what's great with you, Austin, is that I got to word this right. I think you have plateaued, but you also have a plan to do something, and you're executing that plan to where you're going to be out of the house. And I think that's great. You're ready for your next stage of growth in life. You will never get that growth by staying at home, or staying at home and just working a dead-end job. You got to be constantly challenging yourself and growing.
What do you think about that?
Makes sense.
Okay. All right. Well, Austin, thanks for being here with us today. Thanks for sharing a little bit of your life with the Marriage Bites podcast.
So maybe we can have you on when you're back from your mission experience in a couple of years, and maybe we can ask some of these same questions and see where you stand then.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea.
We'll see.
Maybe you'll have a fiance next time you show up to the podcast, and you never know. Maybe we can ask her some questions.
I don't know. That depends on how many viewers you have.
You mean listeners?
If you have enough clout, then yes.
Shoot.
Everyone follow the podcast right now.
If you want to hear back from Austin, you got to subscribe.
If the podcast dies, you won't hear the follow-up.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, thanks for being here. And
Yep, thanks. So hopefully everybody was able to get a little bit out of that, and hopefully you're a little bit more encouraged that, hey, you're not screwing everything up. And that's all we got. Thanks for listening. Good podcast. Yeah!
Like and subscribe.
Thanks for listening to the Marriage Bites podcast.
be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the fun.
Let us know what you took away from this episode by sending us an email at info@andelinprice.com.
You can also see what we're up to on Facebook and Instagram at Andelin Price Coaching. Or you can visit my website, andelinprice.com, to learn more. See you next week.
Bye.
So I'm going to say something.
And I'm going to say something, and then I'm going to say another thing.
Blah, blah, blah.
No, say actual words, please.
I did say words. Those are words.
Try to enunciate your words and try not to slur them together.
Well, this slurring was really fun.
Yes, I'm sure it is. Andelin, what was fatherhood like for you when you first became a father?
I'm
like Ron Burgundy.
Nobody knows.
I just got diarrhea of the mouth and my hair looks wonderful. I can grow the smoothest side of the head hairs ever.
Smoother than Squidward?
Yes.